Bitcoin base layer is a broadcast network, whereas Lightning is a multi-sig set of channels, a network of channels that exists on top of the Bitcoin network, and basically allows for much quicker payments. But of course, it's a newer system. There's more security challenges, more complexity associated with it. And one thing I find interesting is if you look at the map of it, it actually looks quite a bit like the internet did in the early years. So if you look at the current financial system, the way it's structured, you have major settlement systems. They're often run by a central bank or a consortium of banks, and what they do is they settle large, small numbers, relatively small numbers, kind of like millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions a year, which is small in a global sense, of these gigantic transactions. And those are settlements between banks that are generally each in the millions of dollars. And they represent these large settlement transactions that actually consist of multiple consumer transactions and business transactions at a higher layer. And so, for example, when you use your Visa card, that's not the core of the system. You're depending on how you define it. I mean, you're 3-4 layers up on the stack. And so basically, we have this kind of process where you have these. If you look at Fedwire, for example, that's one of the major settlement networks in the United States, and it's operated, as one might guess from the name, by the Fed. And you have this gross interbank settlement system, and it's funny, it actually does about as many transactions per year as the Bitcoin network, kind of rough order of magnitude, but it settles literally hundreds of trillions of dollars per year in gross figures, because these represent banks sending gigantic transactions to each other. And most of us are using that system without even interfacing with it ever. We don't even know, most of us, that we're using it, but just by participating with our bank and using these other types of ways of moving money more quickly for smaller amounts, we end up using that indirectly. And I remember, Elizabeth Stark would say, for example, that in the future she envisions people using Bitcoin and Lightning without even necessarily realizing that they're using it. And I think that's the kind of ecosystem we could see built over time, which is that in addition to Bitcoin, in addition to Lightning, in addition to some of these side chains that give a little bit more expressivity, similar to what you'd see in smart contract blockchains, you also then have a custodial system. And that's kind of controversial to some people, but some people want some degree of custodialship or want to be able to call someone on the phone, or for whatever reason, they want that business relationship. And that's yet another scaling method on top of the stack. And so, for example, as of several months ago, technically everybody with a Cash App account can access Lightning. And so, basically you have this kind of layered approach, and we could see more layers again. I mean, there's other things like channel factories and stuff that could scale things further. They get a little bit above my technical pay grade, but essentially you have this, much like kind of Bitcoin represents almost like a decentralized Fedwire system mixed with its own unit, gold, basically. So you have like digital gold combined with Fedwire, and on top of that you have Lightning's kind of like Visa, and then on top of that you have these other types of interfaces. And I think that what we're seeing is that that basically gives users the option to use it in a way that makes sense for them, right? So if they want the full self-sovereign experience, they can go right to the base layer, they can get a cold card, they can store their funds. If they want to do a self-custodial Lightning wallet, that's another choice that they can do. There's different trade-offs and advantages they get in order, when they do that. Or they can use a custodial solution, and basically as they kind of pick their own adventure on that, they're basically solving for whatever need they have, and the network's there for them the way they want to use it. So obviously, levels of decentralization matter differently on different layers, right? So on the Bitcoin base layer, decentralization is almost all that matters. Basically optimizing for the most possible decentralization, because that's what's enforcing, the basically complete network censorship at the base layer, as well as enforcing the rules of the network, including monetary, supply and things like that. Whereas in the Lightning layer, what you're mainly worried about is the risk of censorship. And so kind of the worst thing that can happen is aside from certain challenges that can make you lose your coins, but in a practical sense, basically getting censored from a large node, and that optionality is key. And I think, when people kind of theorize about how this works, they over engineer it in their head. and they want to design for every possible thing and basically almost pursue decentralization for decentralization's sake, whereas it's ultimately about designing for the end goal in mind. And so Bitcoin at the base layer needs to be super decentralized, whereas that optionality on the Lightning Network is what makes it so useful, because it's not, the Lightning layer is not enforcing the money supply, it's not enforcing, the consensus rules. You're just routing individual payments.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address, because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.